WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, X, and our website, www.wvtcdetroit.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner, Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock, so it must be the Community Bell Show. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful sunny Monday in the city of Detroit and area. We are glad to have you again. And one more time, I want to send a shout out to the Bill Picard family and send blessings to him. Bill was a wonderful, 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 I'm going to call him young man. But did so much for the community, not only here, but around the country. I had an opportunity to attend one of the memorial services for him at the African American Museum on last Friday. He had resolutions and memoriams from all over the country, from people from from mayors, governors, university presidents, you name it, there were resolutions there from them. And it was really an extraordinary event. And so many people from all around the area were there. The president of Howard University, Morehouse University, Grand Valley State University. They were there from all over. So it was just an honor to be there. So again, blessings to just a wonderful man who gave and gave and gave. Now, again, we've got a great guest today, a great guest. And I want you to know, everybody, 17 days before we find out if we've won a third Stellar Award. And of course, we know we're going to win it because we're just going to put it in God's hands and He does things the right way. So we know we're going to be a 3-time winner of the Stellar Awards for the best radio station in our market. Congratulations to us early. Now, my guest today, the Mr. I'm not going to call him Mr. Dr. Andre Johnson. I knew him before he was a doctor. It's a great thing. He's a great young man. This is one of the people I say, this is one of my young men.
That's right.
This is one of my young men.
Mama Bell.
He has done marvelous things for people in our community for a long time. The Detroit Recovery Project is not new. It's been around for a while. It's helped hundreds and thousands of people in their efforts to make themselves whole again, to be a service to their community. Dr. Johnson, tell us how you got started. What made you decide that you wanted to start the Detroit Recovery Project?
Wow. Really. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Miss Bell, for inviting me to be a guest on your show this evening. I'm honored and just love your grace and spirit and all you've done for the community. And people like you keep me going, believe it or not. But Detroit Recovery Project got started based out of conversation. Myself, Dr. Calvin Trent, and the late Alan Bray, we were having one day outside of Cobo Hall. We were hosting a conference inside of the Cobo Hall Conference Center back in the day. This was 2000. And during this time, we were also discussing and having conversations around how to help people stay in recovery, how to help people sustain recovery, how to reduce the recidivism rates. At that time, there was an average of about 15,000 people in the treatment system in the city of Detroit. And we had a very high recidivism rate, which means that these individuals were relapsing within the first 30 days of exiting those treatment programs.
Wow.
And so I was challenged at the time. I was a lot younger. That was 24 years ago. And very, very optimistic, enthusiastic to want to do something significant, to want to have an impact in my community. I had just returned home from Atlanta, Georgia after graduating from Morehouse College. So I had been home for a couple years and just eager to do something significant and meaningful and impactful. And so Dr. Trent at that time said, "Hey, Andre, how about I give you some seed money to start developing some programs to help reduce the recidivism rate?" And I began to give it some thought. He actually earmarked $100,000 of seed money for me to develop programs. And, and one of the things I found out instantly was you can't put a clean fish and put it in dirty water and expect the fish to stay clean.
All right.
We have to have resources to meet people where they are in their community. And if we don't have that when they leave these treatment programs, we're missing the mark.
Sure, just can't throw them back out there in the same situation they were in before they got there.
Right. You go to a 28-day program, 60-day, 90-day program, and you just put people right back out there in the environment. And so I was like, well, we got to develop some programs that are in the community. And that's kind of how we coined the name Detroit Recovery Project. And our philosophy was using a peer-led, a peer-in, and a peer-driven approach. And that means that we hired people who had that lived experience, because people with that lived experience brought value and hope, because part of what we do is it's a form of ministry. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? And it's a form of demonstrating care, concern, love, hope for others, and being able to empower others and let folks know that they can get through this, because people who are struggling with substance use disorders are often they're at their wits' end
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
may not have confidence and may not have people in their lives that believe that they too can find recovery and it's
Absolutely. And that's the
possible.
piece. They don't have anybody in their community, right where they live, that can help because the other people are just like them. So they can't help.
Hey.
Their friends are the ones that got them into it in some cases.
That's what I always say. You
Mhm.
hang out with 9 broke people, you're gonna be the 10th broke person. So you hang out with
With
9
that
winners, you're
person.
gonna be the 10th winner.
That's right.
So we gotta learn, and that's part of what we do is we have something called companionship support. And that's where we begin to link people up, pair people up to begin to help support one another. So we had a basketball league where we would play basketball twice a week. We would go bowling every week, or we have movie night every Friday, or we
Mhm.
have card games. These guys play.
Anybody play bid whist? I'm a bid
They
whist
play
lover.
bid whist, but they
Oh.
play domino like serious,
You
like
know
the
what?
bones. They slam them down real
Like, just like we
hard.
slam the cards in bid whist.
Oh
huh?
yes.
See, I've never learned to play
And then they
dominoes.
talk about you real bad.
Oh yeah, we do
And
that.
they and all they drinking is Coca-Cola and coffee, and you sweating and having
3 or 4 drinks.
because
I understand. That sounds like our bid whist games.
they get riled up. But and I tell you, I love just being observant because I will get some good laughs out of the stories you hear. But those are small things to do, small feats to do, where people can begin to have normal interaction without the use of drugs and alcohol.
And around other people who are trying to stay away from
Absolutely.
it. Too. That makes a difference.
It makes a world of a difference because we live in this society now where you get on a plane with your kid for a drink, you can't even go sit down in a restaurant with your kid for a drink.
That's first thing
and then if you
ask
ask them for some water, they be looking at you cross-eyed.
Yes.
Like you offended them.
Yeah, what do you mean?
And we got the marijuana places everywhere, and it's just this world of where substances are always promoted, and we're out here promoting drug-free lifestyle, substance-free lifestyle.
It's interesting. I was watching some old movies the other day, and everybody had a cigarette.
Oh,
the first thing you see when the movie comes on, everybody had a cigarette. And it obviously wasn't until the last 30 years, 40 years that cigarettes became the no because they're killing you, everybody.
Absolutely.
And now
right.
you don't see anybody with a cigarette in movies anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I was just telling somebody in the 80s, the late 80s, everybody was smoking cigarettes in their cars and everywhere. And walking down the grocery store line, smoking cigarettes. And then in the early 90s, you start coming up with these smoke free laws, or smoke free environments, or tobacco free environments, and we started developing these laws and policies because we discovered that the secondhand tobacco smoke was strongly impacting young people. And we had a large population right here in Detroit of young people who had significant respiratory challenges. I discovered that when I used to work at the health department, where all these young folks was exposed to secondhand tobacco smoke.
At an early age, as babies they were exposed to.
Yes, and the mothers were smoking pregnant. And so you had a lot of lung complications.
Asthma and all of that
yeah.
created. And now now they're grown and they've got asthma and other kinds of lung complications. So I think about that when I think about the other substance abuse. And when you see on TV, you don't see people drinking as much now. Because that was the first thing you see in a movie. The first thing they had was a drink. But fortunately, and I hope we get to a point where we don't see that as much on TV and in all these other kinds of media. And maybe that will help. At some point, we'll get there.
I don't think that's going to happen this time because TV, I think they got worse from when I was a child. I mean, now it's sex. They drop the B word, the curse word, and they say it's PG.
Yes, yeah, I know. yes.
So,
but as you were saying that they need to be in an environment where there are other people like them. That it's okay not to do it.
Yes, and we have to, and we need people, and that's why I've always appreciated you because you've always extended an olive branch and volunteered. And, your daughter's been on our board since we first founded the nonprofit 20 years ago. And your family has been very, very supportive. And we need people of all walks of life that support our cause, because not only are we trying to help people, but we're also countering a lot of stigmatization where, people think that just because somebody used drugs, they're a criminal, or there's some type of morale issue. But, to struggle from addiction, addiction is a form of brain disease.
Yes.
And what happens is, that brain, drugs feed that pleasure in that brain. And inside of your brain, you have the serotonin and the dopamines that's released that makes you say, "Oh, this tastes good. Oh, this feels good.
I need some more of this."
Yes.
So
And
I can feel good again.
And that's what the drugs do constantly, and it never stops. The cycle continues until that cycle is broken. And sometimes the cycle's not broken until people end up in prison, incarcerated, or people end up deceased and dead. Or sometimes they on that run for 20, 30, 40 years. And those long runs, families are impacted, communities are impacted. And so for me, it's all about Detroit Recovery Project, because we helping individuals, and when we help individuals, we're helping their families and we're helping the communities at large.
Now that piece is the piece that really, really hits me hard, because when I look at some of the children in our school system and their families, and these children, absenteeism is a huge issue in the school system, and it isn't the child's fault. The absenteeism rate is because there's people in that family that have some issues. Many times it is some kind of drug related issue. They don't have a job. They can't get up in the morning to get the kids to school. So the kids are trying to get themselves to school. Because of the addiction, they're moving 3 or 4 times during a semester. So this kid has been in 2 or 3 schools in one year. Babies can't learn like that.
Right. And let me just break that down a little bit, a little deeper. As you know, I'm a clinical psychologist by trade.
Yes.
And one of the things I look at is, so like the example you just described, you have a child who's in a home, their parents are using drugs, the parents are not working, they're experiencing some poverty. And when kids experience poverty and they experience parents who are using drugs, those kids now have been exposed to something known as adverse childhood experiences, which, the code word is ACEs. And that means they've been exposed to trauma. And when those kids experience that, they become more vulnerable, they can become more at risk and more susceptible and prone to indulge in at-risk or risky behaviors.
So now we've got another generation.
Multi-generational. So and the cycle just continues from there. And we never really fixed the problem, because we start ignoring the adults, and then we start taking care of the babies. And then instead of trying to take care of the adults and the babies and then unifying the family, now this family cycle just continues. It's a circulatory effect.
Yes. And that's the heartbreak, because these babies don't have a chance. They don't have a chance, because first of all, they can't get to school because the parents are indulging. And then the times that they do get there, they can't participate because of the trauma that they experience at home. And so there's just no way for them to succeed. There's no way for them to succeed. And that's the heartache. And then you have absenteeism rates that are so high that they can't go from grade to grade. So now they are 12 years old and they should be in the 7th grade. They're in the 5th grade.
So sad.
And now because of that, they act out. So then they've got some issues with performance and issues with how they act in school. So now they're going to get kicked out of school. And it's just not that baby's fault. And somehow we've got to get to the real issue, and that's helping the whole family.
Yeah, that's the core. I mean, the child now is, like you say, 12 supposed to be what grade did you say?
It's supposed to be in the seventh grade.
Supposed to be in the seventh grade and still in the third or fourth. And now this child is struggling with reading, writing,
Yes.
literacy skills. And it only gets worse. The older you get, the more or less likely you want to go to school and be the oldest student or the tallest student in your
and
class.
The other kids are going to
and you
taught them.
3 years behind. And so if we don't invest in early childhood development, in middle and high school, because we already know certain communities, we have high school dropout rates. All we have to do is look at the performances in every school, and we can just about pinpoint the communities where drugs are more prevalent, where violence and crime are more prevalent. We can look at the zip codes.
Yes.
And based on those zip codes, we can also recognize that the children in those communities are being impacted.
Yes.
And they're being affected the most. And if there's no intervention that's occurring amongst those kids, then those will be the kids we'll see going to jail. Those will be the kids we'll be trying to scratch our head and understand, how did they shoot somebody or kill somebody without any emotions, because they wasn't raised and then wasn't embraced with love, care, and nurture.
That's it.
And so their value system is on a zero.
Yes.
So it's about embracing, it's about loving, it's about stepping up, it's about making sure we have social programs in the communities where it's needed the most. Because if we don't, we're abandoning our community, and when we abandon the community, we abandon the children.
Absolutely.
Now that affects their whole developmental process.
And not only those children, everybody in the community. Everybody is impacted by that. The businesses in the community, the churches, the schools, every other organization in the community is impacted. The city of Detroit just, I think last year, put out something called Shot Stopper, I believe.
Okay.
And they gave contracts to several groups in supposedly the high crime rate areas where the most shootings were taking place.
Okay.
They are coming back. It's time now to review how effective that was. Appears to be have been effective in some cases, some other cases not as effective. But as they come back this year for more of those contracts to go out again, it seems to me that part of that ought to be the family being embraced. It ought to be services provided, not just, okay, we're going to stop this gang of kids from shooting each other. But to do that, you've got to have some other support services to help that not happen.
And the whole, just think about it, gangs, the whole core of why kids want to join gangs is because they want a family.
Exactly.
And the gangs become the family. They become the people that say, come on, let's do this, let's do that. Because your father's not doing it, your mother's not doing it, your older sibling not doing it. So you connect with these gangs. And so again, if we don't address the core is the family unit. We got to support the family.
Exactly.
We got to support the mother. If we know the mother is struggling and making minimum wage, and she got 3 kids and she's going to work 10, 12 hours.
And the 10-year-old is taking care of the 4 and the 5-year-old.
Right. You got, yes.
It can't work.
It's not going to be effective unless we have some programs in those communities where these kids can receive after school services that involves tutorial, that involves social skills, that involves a place where they can address and talk about their trauma. They can talk about some inappropriate things that they may have seen or been exposed to, and not have to worry about being punished or disciplined, because these kids are vulnerable. And when kids are vulnerable, they do what at-risk kids do.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think that the thing you talked about with the mayor and the violence prevention, I think I heard little bits and pieces about that initiative in terms of reducing violence. And they have the zip codes where the most violence occurs. But even that in itself, a lot of it is drug related as well as gang related.
Yes.
And, again, and so when you talk about, hey, that program need to have a family component, but it also should encompass like living drug and alcohol free and making sure that sounds cool. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means, I haven't used drugs or alcohol, and it'll be 36 years July 13th next month. And I've been sober since I was 18 years old, 18 July 13th, 1988, and it's a lifestyle. And I think enough people don't talk about it's okay to be cool and be sober.
Yes. And I think sometimes there's still stigma attached to it. And some people aren't strong enough yet to be able to say that was me. And now look at me.
Yeah, and people don't want to talk about
Yeah.
it because, that's why they have these programs called 12-step anonymous programs because they want to be anonymous because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be stigmatized. I mean, I go to meetings where there's judges, lawyers, police officers, every, preachers, every walk of life has been impacted by drug and alcohol. No one gets a pass.
Yes.
And so I think we don't have enough anti-messages to combat the stigma. We don't have enough resources in our community. We don't talk about it enough.
That's the other piece. We don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, nobody want to talk about addiction. I go to church and somebody want to whisper to me, my great grandson is drinking, whisper it real quiet.
And what do you want me to do?
And don't tell nobody. Well,
Yeah.
that person is suffering in silence.
Yeah.
That's the problem, not telling nobody. Right. We got to jump all over it. Let's get this person some help.
Grandson suffering, you're suffering too. It's not just him. The whole family is suffering because of it.
The whole family is suffering. And that's the important part about all this. We be trying to protect and hide. I just had to go to a funeral 2 weeks ago. 27-year-old young man overdosed, got a hold to some fentanyl. And, his parents talking about he had a respiratory heart failure. He ain't had no health problems. But I understand, the depression, the sadness, the grief that comes with losing loved ones because of addiction. But again, people are suffering in silence because we don't talk about it. And we got to be okay. Black people historically have been the least population to get help for mental health services.
Yes. Oh, well, you can't talk about somebody in the family that we call them crazy, right?
Oh,
they got somebody crazy in the family, everybody. You can't talk about that in the black community.
See, that ain't appropriate no more, Baba.
I know. See that? You can't talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh no. Because that's the quiet part.
Yes,
And
a lot of times, that stuff go hand in hand.
Exactly.
And we have these communities where we come from. You don't tell people what you think. You don't tell people how you feel. You need to swallow them tears. And we've been conditioned not to feel. We've been conditioned not to seek help when we need mental health. And it's okay to get mental health. Other people's get it all the time.
Been getting it for years. Been getting it for them and their children.
Right. Whole families.
Yes, everybody.
And our whole family struggling and suffering and becoming homeless and incarcerated and jobless and penniless.
And we're going to be quiet about it.
And we keep supporting that.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to be quiet. We can't tell anybody that Mary is living in her car.
Right.
Don't tell anybody now.
I mean, mental health illness is real. We got to treat it. We got to promote it. We have therapists. That's why I decided to go to school to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. It's only 3% Black clinical psychologists in the country.
Wow.
3%.
3%.
And you think about the number or the percentage of Black people or African Americans who need mental health services.
Yes.
And, you'd be surprised the calls I get from around the community because I've been very outspoken about my journey, my path. And, every now and again, somebody say, can you please help my son? Or can you please help my granddaughter? And I say, of course I can. That's what I do. But they feel so shy and so reluctant.
They want to whisper.
Right. They want to whisper like, yo, let's get this done. Let's help them.
Exactly. And it continues to be that I can have cancer. And it's okay to talk about that out loud.
Yeah, you got cancer, and that's
but the mental health piece and the emotional piece, it's just like cancer. But we don't want to talk about that out loud.
Yeah,
We don't want to say
it's
that.
worse. I
Mhm.
mean, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I think, first of all, to have the disease of addiction, we do put classify as a mental health disorder, and it's in the diagnostic statistical manual, which is the manual that classifies how to diagnose and the symptoms you look for when people are being diagnosed with personality disorders, mood disorders, anxiety disorders,
Mhm.
schizophrenia, and substance use disorder. And it's just like any other illness. If it's not treated, it progressively gets worse.
Mhm.
So if you have stage one cancer and you don't treat stage one cancer, then you go what to stage two cancer. Then you go to
Mhm.
stage three and you go to stage four. And now when you get to stage four, you hoping that you can get rid of it. And it's a 50-50
Yeah,
chance
yeah.
that, depending
It's
on where it's
it's
at.
kind of all over by then,
Right, right.
pretty
So
much. And they always, well, they have stage 4 cancer. Oh well, they're not going to make it, but we're going to try to make them as comfortable as we can. We're going to try to just
they're gonna
make
give
sure
them some
we're going to
morphine,
give them a little more so
give
they
them a
don't
whole
feel as
bunch of
much
dope.
pain. But the mental health is the same way. It starts out maybe a few things going on, and somebody said, "Well, I wonder why they did that," and then something else happens, and it's, "Oh, I wonder why they did that."
Right.
Gee, they didn't do that before. They're doing a little bit worse now, but
Never.
we don't treat the first part of it, and
Right.
so it gets worse.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just like to put a band-aid on it. Oh, you just pray, or you just need to go to church, or you just need to read the Bible. No, all that stuff sounds good, but some people need professional help.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to
Mm-hmm.
promote getting people professional help
Mm-hmm.
because the church, the Bible ain't gonna do it. Some folks are what's known as clinically significantly depressed. And so when you got somebody that's severely depressed, you have to have a professional to help them to
Mm-hmm.
kind of shift from severe to mild depression or low depression or vice
Yes.
versa. And the same with addiction. That's why it's important. Like one of the approaches we do is a multi approach where we have a psychiatrist, we have a primary care physician, we have a psychologist, a peer specialist, and a master level therapist or counselor. And we work as a team
Mm-hmm.
to work with individuals and to help them more holistically. So we're addressing the mental health challenge, we're addressing the SUD challenge, we're addressing the family challenges. How do we begin to work on family integration and meet people where they are? So, in a lot of cases, we see people who they've been burned. I mean, not burned, but totally disowned from their
Mm-hmm.
families. And
Mm-hmm.
those family
Mm-hmm.
members have a right to feel that way, but they also need help and support
Mm-hmm.
because now they've abandoned their loved ones and the loved ones, the people who struggling with addiction and mental illness, the top three words I usually hear is embarrassment, shame,
Mm-hmm.
and guilt.
Yes.
And that causes people, that contributes to people staying out there using over and over and over and keep hitting their head on the wall.
What do you do at the Detroit Recovery Project as relates to the physical ailments people have when they have mental illness? Because many times they develop physical ailments, real physical ailments that need a medical doctor
Yeah.
associated with the psychologist, psychiatrist to help them. So, are you able to refer people to medical doctors to help that side of the problem?
I'm glad you said that. Okay, you just teed me up. So, like one of the paradigms here in Michigan is we have something called Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, which promotes a more integrated process of both physical health and mental health, or
Okay.
behavioral health is what it's
Mhm.
called. And so when we say behavioral health, we're referring to both mental health and substance use disorders. And then obviously physical health. So now when a person goes into our recovery center, they can see a nurse practitioner, they can see a primary care physician, and they can get their, high blood pressure, diabetes. We also have a harm reduction program where we have mobile outreach teams out in the city of Detroit every day. And so Now it's more holistic. Because what I learned is that when we put down drugs, those addictions begin to transfer in other areas. And the top three most common things are sex, shopping, and eating.
Really?
Now we got to watch out for the fourth.
Oh.
And then you eat, you keep eating and you ain't working out. And then you look up, you've been clean and sober for 15 years and you got diabetes and wide as a house. Can't tell the front from the back.
So now we got another problem.
We got a whole nother
problem.
The addiction has manifested itself in other areas of one's life. And so I realized that, we started, there's something called comorbidity. And that means individuals have both physical health challenges as well as mental health and substance use disorders. And so comorbidity. And so for me, is how do we build and expand our program to help the brothers and the sisters with comorbidity? So like I had a guy about 4 years ago. He told me that he had prostate cancer. And he was an older gentleman, like 67 years old.
Oh, that was older?
Well, to me...
but it's okay. It's okay, because I'm happy to be old. I'm trying to get older.
Yeah, but here we are, though. So I'm thinking like he had been retired for several years. And I'm thinking like, wow, you got prostate. And so my automatic question was, were you getting your, prostate exam every year? And he said, no. And I said, what?
Well, how do you know you get
Well, when you get your prostate exam every year, then you can prevent yourself from it spreading or getting worse. Yes. Long story short, he died of it. But part of my conversation with him and what he told me was because he shot so much heroin in his addiction, the nurses couldn't find a vein, and the nurses and the doctors would judge him based on his physical body experience. Therefore, he never made it to the doctor.
Stop.
And that just broke my heart.
My gosh.
He had lived drug and alcohol free for 35 years. But because of his physical health condition from back in the 60s and 70s, using those IV needles, you had all these abscesses all over his body. And that was a wake-up call for me to say, hey, well, maybe we need to invest and start developing, having our own doctors, our own nurses, because we're talking about physical health staff who were stigmatizing our patients. They wasn't embracing our patients. And so now we have a nurse that have that lived experience and bring that another level of compassion. So and not important. To say all nurses do, but
that is so important that you have people who understand and are not judging.
That's it. And that's what we say. Those who judge don't matter, and those who matter don't judge.
All right.
So we got a whole bunch of sayings about that because we got to empower these people.
I know, that's right. We gotta get them to where they need to be and give them the help they need to have.
That is the name of the plan.
That's the piece. Now, where are your locations?
Sure. So we have one location on east side of Detroit, 1121 East McNichols, right off of I-75. And then we have another location on the west side, which is 1145 West Grand Boulevard, right off of Michigan Avenue. And then our website is recovery4detroit.com. That's recovery4detroit.com. And our phone number is 313-365-3100. 313-365-3100. And I hope the listeners write these numbers and information down. And please know that you, or if a loved one is experiencing someone that's struggling with mental health, substance use disorder, you can call our number at any given time, or you can always go to our website and find additional resources for your loved ones. We celebrate 20 years next month.
Isn't that something?
And we are so excited.
I remember when. Oh, my goodness.
Yes. 20 years of being in business has not been easy. We've survived an epidemic. We've survived a COVID pandemic. We've survived all kind of national unrest. I mean,
fallout when everything fell apart in 2008.
The financial fallout. We watched the big three go to
Yes.
the government for bailout. And because we started, 20 years ago in 2004. So we were starting in a good time. Detroit was getting ready for the Super Bowl. What year
Yes.
was the Super Bowl? Was that
It was, let's see,
somewhere around 7 or 8?
7, 8. Well, it
6 or
wasn't
7?
8. It had to be 5 or 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6, something like that. But
Yeah.
anyhow, we were very, very eager and ecstatic to start developing this program. In fact, we were one of the first trailblazers in the state of Michigan to start something known as a recovery community organization. And during that time, we founded our nonprofit in 2004. We started developing strong partnerships with other organizations like Dr. Chad Audie from Detroit Rescue Mission Ministry, provided space for our centers to house us as staff. But we actually we were birthed out of the City of Detroit Health Department.
Yes.
That's the good old Herman Kiefer days of the John C. Lodge. And then, so we expanded, and we shifted, and we began to just kind of grow. I think we're one of the best undertold stories in the city of Detroit around how the mission drove our organization, and the mission has really motivated people to want to be part of our team. And we've had a great impact in the community.
No question. That's why I just wanted to have you here, because your 20th anniversary is coming. I want people to know 20th anniversary is coming, everybody. You need to celebrate the Detroit Recovery Project.
That's right.
And we always take we take donations. So if anybody wants to donate to the Detroit Recovery Project, you see the website, you have a telephone number.
That's right. And in fact, we have a town hall meeting that we're going to be hosting next Friday, July 12th, from 11 to 3 o'clock p.m. We have the lovely mistress of ceremony, Carolyn Clifford, to be our mistress of ceremony. We also have a very esteemed panel members, and all of them are individuals in long-term recovery, 2 local people and 2 national people. One person's from Dallas, Texas. The other person is from Los Angeles. And they bring just a spirit of recovery, but also they bring a lot of professional work experiences in the space of opioids and how we're countering opioids in our community. So we'll have some really in-depth conversation around that next week. Again, that's next Friday, July 12th, from 11 to 3. And then later that night, we're going to host a masquerade gala. So this is going to be a black and white theme. And this is where you just come and have fun.
Where is it going to be?
Everything will be held at the Garden Theater on Woodward Avenue near downtown Detroit.
Location.
And so we'll have the masquerade party will be from 7 to 11 p.m. We have R&B artist Tony Terry. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was like a hot R&B artist in the 90s. And then we have a local jazz group called Them. We'll have DJ hors d'oeuvres. And part of our goal was to raise $20,000 and give out $21,000 scholarships to children who come from households where their parents were addicted or had mental health illness. So we did this 5 years ago and gave out 15 $1,000 scholarships. This year, we're going to give out 20 $1,000 scholarship. And again, all that information is on our website. So hopefully your listeners that may want to join or perhaps support, that would really, really be awesome.
Everybody hear that? I mean, got a couple of extra coins. Detroit Recovery Project can use them.
Amen.
Can use them for the babies.
Yes.
For the babies.
Yes.
That's the important part. It's for the babies. We can't do enough for the babies. So just remember that. But for an organization that has been around 20 years, helping people get their lives back. And that's what this is about. Getting their lives back, getting their families back, keeping themselves together. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Detroit Recovery Project. You need to be able to support them whenever you can. How about volunteers? Do you use volunteers at all?
Yes, we actually need volunteers for our events next week too. Next Friday on the 12th. So if they call our office or there's a volunteer sign-up sheet on our website. We're always in need of volunteers to kind of help out with certain things around the building. Sometimes just people being another set of eyes or ears, or sometimes working the receptionist desk while our receptionist may go to lunch. It's just kind of pitching in because there is a workforce crisis. We have several full-time jobs available for therapists right now. A lot of people still want to work from home or say they're working at home.
Say they're working at home.
Working remote.
Yes,
I'm working
we
remote
know about
with
that,
with the remote control or the TV in their hand.
Okay, volunteers, everybody. I've got a couple of people who are going to volunteer.
Okay.
Me and somebody else.
Let's do
somebody else. We can come and answer the phone
yes.
at lunchtime or whenever,
yes.
or do whatever you need us to do. We know how to file and
all right.
do all
I
that
know
kind
you
of
got
stuff.
all kinds of
Some
skills.
people we can help out with that. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you. It's my
joining us.
pleasure.
I really wanted people to hear, because sometimes people just don't know the resources in their own community.
Yeah. Well, that's why you got the community bell. The bell rings when the community bell come on the microphone because she has access. She know where they are. You know, every corner of Detroit, Wayne. And so I'm honored to be a part of this show. And I think I would love to come back if I can.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
We'd love to have you back because I'd love to hear how the progress is going.
Okay.
And next, I want to talk about what kind of activities we have for you people. You know, can they run? Can they? You know, they have running, you have walking groups, or you have people that play golf, baseball, all of that kind of thing.
Okay.
Those are the kinds of things I think we need to. Here I go with we. I'm a part of Detroit Rotary Project.
You are family.
We need to have those kinds of things for people because sometimes I think people think, well, all those people, they don't know how to do any of that. Those people are all of us.
Right.
Those people are people who look just like me and like you, audience. You would never know that some of the people who have issues. Right. So don't just think it's the people that you see standing on the road that have the issues. We all have issues, and you don't know that they have issues, but because they hide it well. They hide it well. So don't just think that that's other people. It's all of us.
That's right. Nobody's excluded.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Community Bell Show. We are so glad you chose to be with us today with my special guest, Dr. Andre Johnson, the Detroit Recovery Project. And the 20th anniversary is coming. The 12th of July, they have a forum coming and then a masquerade event that evening at the Garden Theater. Be there. Okay, I'm going to say something. My grandkids will laugh at me. Be there or be square. And they'll say, Nana, what does that mean? But thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next Monday, 4:00, the Community Bell Show. Have a great week.
Without Project Clean Slate, there is no telling where I would be right now.
It gave him back his life because once he got the felony, it seemed like life was over.
Being unemployed, being depressed, being a burden. Project Clean Slate helped wipe those things away. I can't say thank you enough. I am now able to work for a reputable airline. Detroit had my back, all because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Lisa Scott Bailey, gospel recording artist and songwriter, and I listen to WVTC Detroit. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit. You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit.
The views and opinions expressed on the previous broadcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of WVTC Radio Detroit, its advertisers, or affiliates.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.